But to my surprise, I had a chunk of French as well as Turkish in my genetics. Anatolian is a region in Turkey. I'm learning more about it every day. After many nights pondering my newfound place in the world, I actually realized that, it actually did make sense, because my love of cats must have stemmed from my ancestors in Istanbul that nourished the tens of thousands of cats living within its city walls. My genetics also seem to explain my love of French language and culture. At the end of the day, I discovered that I wasn't just a Russian citizen or an American citizen or Jewish. I wasn't defined by where I had lived or my family had lived. As a person, I'm made up of countless different parts of me that make me who I am. And for that reason, I feel like I'm a global scholar because I don't belong to just one tribe. Every person I meet, every language I learn, and every country I learn about in history impacts me in one way or another. I found that when I reduced myself to just one identity, I was ignoring parts of myself that gave me a wider cultural understanding. For these reasons, I consider myself to be a citizen of the world. So a huge part of my journey as a global scholar has been rooted in my experiences at York School. When I started French in 8th grade at York, it felt like I was embarking on a journey to another world. Like Le Petit Prince, the main character of The Little Prince, a book I read last year in Yaz French 4, every chapter of my book felt like a different planet that I was exploring. After I was inducted into the French Honor Society, Soo-Yeon Kim, Chloe Horning, and I started a French culture club at York. Our goal was to establish a place where people could get together and share their love of French. Since my sophomore year, we have organized pen pal programs with York's sister school in Lille, which is right next to Belgium. We've raised money for our sister school in Haiti, and we've made upwards of 300 crepes and 2 huge bowls of ratatouille. My time in York's French Culture Club has encouraged me to never stop trying to establish cross-cultural ties. Now that I'm in French 5, learning about Francophone countries, immigration, and cultural identity, I realize how grateful I am to have had the opportunity at York to not only foster my love of French, but my understanding of people from around the world. So, with my French education in conjunction with York's Study Abroad program, I was also able to take classes in French language and culture in Paris the summer before my junior year. In addition to improving my language skills, my CIE trip opened up my worldview by perfectly curating each cultural activity. From the minute I woke up and rode the metro to class, I was being imbued with knowledge about Parisian culture. After 3 hours of class, we participated in an activity known as Ose le Français, Ose meaning to dare. So we would have to go up cold turkey and just interview locals from the street. And it was honestly the scariest part of my CIE trip because you never really knew who you were going to be contacting. Maybe it was a local from Paris or maybe it was a Canadian tourist. Either way, all of the Parisians I met gave incredibly thoughtful and kind answers. After Ose le Français, we participate in cultural activities where we learn about the past of Paris. And after a couple hours of free time, I would then return to my beautiful host family's apartment where we'd partake in a 2-hour-long multi-course dinner in the traditional French fashion. Living with an unbelievably kind host family and taking classes with an adorable old woman named Marie-Christine, I saw my love of French swell. As I sat around the dinner table every night, eating colossal amounts of camembert and discussing macaron with my host family, I learned that French people are literally nothing like how they are stereotyped to be. Whenever I interviewed locals after class, I found that they were so different than my preconceived notions of them. And in class with Marie-Christine, I was able to analyze France's complex history and its growing future, gaining a deeper understanding of the country itself. So when I returned to the United States after my sojourn to Paris, I wasn't sure exactly how my experiences would affect my day-to-day life. How could I implement all these amazing things that I had learned on my study abroad? And the answer to this question didn't really strike me until the very end of last year. So as a junior at York School, you're expected to complete a thesis project. With my Russian heritage, I knew I wanted to write and present a paper that changed people's perspectives of my motherland. With a lot of counseling from Dr. Giacchetti, I settled on writing about the INF Treaty, an agreement between the Soviet Union and the United States made in 1987, which was basically the peak of the Cold War. It effectively resulted in a huge decrease in nuclear weapons. And about a month prior to me choosing this topic, both countries, the United States and Russia, actually mutually left the treaty. So I immediately set to working on my paper when Dr. Ducati asked me if I'd be interested in participating in the Critical Issues Forum on Nuclear Nonproliferation at Middlebury Institute of International Studies. So my first question was, what's nuclear nonproliferation? Because I had no idea what that meant. But I said yes anyway, and unwittingly I was about to embark on my biggest journey yet. Even though I'd only be traveling about 10 minutes from my house to Middlebury, over the days of the conference, I'd be traversing the globe, learning about nuclear studies in the scope of science, politics, and international relations. Hearing from high school students from Japan, Russia, and all over America, I was able to understand other cultures in a way I never had before. Furthermore, by giving my own presentation on the INF Treaty with Tom Liu, I realized how important nuclear nonproliferation was to me, despite not knowing what it meant just a month prior. The Critical Issues Forum opened my eyes to so many things. Japan, Russia, and the United States have all had incredibly tumultuous relationships throughout history. However, in the Critical Issues Forum, students from all three countries were able to unite over the understanding that ideas like mutually assured destruction are toxic, and we cannot permit our countries to destroy the planet due to something as silly as politics. France is a nuclear state, and even though it's not in the news as much for things like breaking treaties, the country has played a huge role in the history of nuclear weapons. So, in order to synthesize my research on nuclear weapons with my French studies, I decided to make a video that could easily describe our current nuclear state while educating the public on deeper issues such as the environmental impacts of nuclear testing. So this video will be posted on the Global Scholar webpage. Please watch it. I spent a lot of time on it. But for the sake of this presentation, I'm just going to briefly describe what I go into in the presentation. So with the death of the INF Treaty, more and more nuclear weapons are being developed by nuclear states such as the United States, Russia, France, China, Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea. Nuclear weapons brings nuclear testing, a seldom discussed topic that is disastrous both environmentally and biologically. France's nuclear weapons program was once known as the Force Frappe, meaning strike force. It was made up of land, sea, and air weapons. And during the 1960s, France began testing its nuclear weaponry in its colonies, such as French Polynesia and Algeria. Locals claimed that these tests caused a lot of personal injuries and the former colonies were left radioactive. Some estimations even predict that near 27,000 Algerians were left victim to radiation. After countless protests against nuclear testing, France began utilizing simulations in place of nuclear testing. To do this, France used three tools: the ARIX, the Terra-10, and the megajoule laser. With these mechanisms, France was able to test nuclear weapons on a microscopic level by combusting and igniting thermonuclear materials in a localized setting. France's revolutionary method of nuclear testing eliminated many of the factors which made traditional atmospheric nuclear testing dangerous. So, as we all know, a nuclear war would destroy the planet as we know it. And even though nuclear testing is a smaller scale issue, it still demonstrates the environmental impacts that a nuclear war would have on our planet. By showing this video at the upcoming 2020 Critical Issues Forum at MIDS, I hope to implant the idea of sustainable solutions to modern problems. I alone cannot eliminate nuclear weaponry or nuclear testing. However, the goal of my synthesis project was to introduce an alternate model of nuclear testing that has a less destructive impact. At the end of the day, we make up a singular human race and we all share one planet Earth. So disregarding politics and xenophobia, it's honestly our duty as the younger generation to begin fostering ties with countries that we might not necessarily agree with for the sake of our planet. So my studies at York and abroad have taught me not only about nuclear studies and language, but how important a global perspective really is in life. And for those reasons, I really hope you guys continue your language studies and you study abroad in CIE if you haven't already. So thank you.